So, welcome back, my dear. In this video, we are going to discuss what's the basic scenario for your local setup for remote teaching and trainings. So the subtitle is How Low Can You Go? So as you can guess, the question is, what is the least feasible scenario in terms of investment, in terms of infrastructure to work with such an scenario? So basically, let's take a closer look how your scenario could look like. So probably you will have something like, I would say you have a notebook on your table and maybe an external monitor. I think this is the minimum scenario. But in that case, you will pretty soon run into one particular problem, which is in fact that you're going to work with different programs and you need to arrange these programs somehow on your two displays. And what you probably start with is that you're going to have your PowerPoint presentation. It's open in this window. And then you hit on the presentation button. And what happens is PowerPoint consumes all the space of your external monitor. So you're running short in terms of place where to put the other programs. So maybe you want to rearrange PowerPoint a little bit, make it a little bit smaller to have your Teams call and your Zoom meeting or whatever you have. And you already see it's pretty crowded here. So that's not a perfect situation. So an easy thing that you typically would do now is, if you're clever, you're going to switch. Something like you say, hey, let's take the overview perspective from PowerPoint, maybe right here. And the presentation is done on the small monitor on your notebook. And then maybe you have, I don't know, you have your Teams or your Zoom window open to see the participants. You need to have OBS and stuff like that. And it becomes overcrowded because probably you want to see your notes as well. But okay, maybe you have printed them so they lay on the table. But then you have some other stuff like maybe you want to show some MATLAB data or whatever you have. So this is not a perfect solution. So one of the main problems here is that you have two elements that require a full screen. The one thing is the OBS projector, which is better to be running in a full screen, but okay, you can make it in a window projector as well, as we've learned. And the second thing is the PowerPoint stuff. So the PowerPoint presentation always consumes a full window, which is pretty annoying. So there is one easy trick that you can make here, which is to run PowerPoint in a windowed setup. This is not everyone is familiar with that, but I will show you. So I'm just opening here my PowerPoint. And the trick is, if you go down to the bottom right here, then you will find a button which says reading mode. And if you change to reading mode, then basically what you get is you get your presentation in a window. So you can see all the animations that you want to have. You can scroll through the presentation with your mouse wheel. It's like a normal presentation. So this means you can run PowerPoint in a window and integrate this particular window in OBS instead of the whole monitor. So in this setup, then we can end up with something like having the presentation rather small, because if you're sitting close to the monitor, you don't need to have it big. Maybe you have your Teams meeting over there. I always prefer to have the meeting in a pretty big window to really see the participants and to have the feedback channel. So this is probably a good idea. The problem with this setup is that even though PowerPoint is presenting in a windowed mode, the problem is that you don't have the second PowerPoint window, like the presenter's view or the slide sorting or whatever. So you really only have the presentation here and nothing else. And I mean, if you're really familiar with your presentation, then you're pretty fine. You know the next slide and everything, and good. But in real life trainings where you have a lot of interaction, interactions. I don't know how you feel about that, but I'm adjusting the agenda on the fly during a training, which means if we have a lot of discussions, then I decide on the fly to hide a few slides. Maybe I'm rearranging the sort order or something like that, and I prefer to make it in the slide sorting window from PowerPoint, so the participants don't see that I'm skipping slides, they don't see that I'm rearranging, because I feel more comfortable with that. Because if I want to skip slides and I just present it and just click over it, then it always appears as if you don't have a plan, you are not meeting the agenda anymore. And this is I don't know, it makes me uncomfortable. I prefer that every slide that opens is discussed and used to elaborate something. So for me personally, this setup is it's a compromise if you really don't want to invest in your equipment, because again, you only have 2 monitors, presentation in a small window, and no chance to adjust the presentation. So I prefer to go in a more advanced scenario that we will see later. But anyhow, not everyone is willing to invest or has the possibility to put effort in the infrastructure and has to live with this. And so for that reason, at least I want to show you one trick that helps you to get your screen organized in a better way. And this trick is called, I guess the correct word is screen sorting tools or window sorting tools. I don't know. There are pretty many on the market that can help you. But I personally prefer to use the inbuilt solution from Microsoft, which is called Fancy Sounds, and it's part of the Power Toys that you need to install first. So in the next video, I'm gonna show you how to use Fancy Sounds to get some structure on your monitor to not get lost in all these open windows. So then see you in the next video.